Hey everyone, welcome to week 2, and thank you for introducing yourself in the class discussion. It was really good to get to know all of you and get to learn a little bit about you. We have some really interesting, dynamic people in this class. I mean, it's great to see the different backgrounds that we have and the different kind of students that are taking this class. I put it for this week, but I'll just say it again right now. If you haven't already, please go back and read about your classmates. I know sometimes taking an online class, it feels very isolated, right? Because it's just you and your screen at your own time, and it just feels like you're on your own. But you're not. You have all these classmates taking this course together, going through the same things that you're going through. And we are going to have future class discussions, and you'll hopefully get to know each other a little bit better that way. But I think it's just good to see who else is joining you in this experience. As for the class discussions, something you should pay attention to is every graded assignment that I give you, I give some kind of feedback. So if you haven't looked at the feedback that I gave you, please do. And a few of you lost a few points for really two main reasons. It was either a word count issue or it was a grammar issue. So for the word count, some of you might have only been 10 words below what I required as the minimum. Some of you might have been only 10 words or plus, above what the word count I gave you. And while I know that seems silly that I'm taking points off for that, I did it for a reason, and I do it for a reason every time that I give guidelines. And if you miss it just by a little bit, why I'm strict with it. And that's because in the field of journalism, those are hard, fast rules. If your editor says this story has to be between 500 and 750 words, and you're a little bit below or a little bit above, they might not run the story, or they're going to be ticked with you that you didn't get within that word count. This goes back before when it was print, and there still are obviously a lot of print publications, but in the newspaper you only had a certain amount of space, so you had to get within that word count. Online, while I know it's a little bit more flexible, it's not always. Like for example, the Associated Press, which we'll learn a little bit about. Online, their stories, they have different parameters, but it's usually between 500 and 750 words because they know that's like the optimal word count for a reader to read. So if it's a little bit below or a little bit above, the AP doesn't want you to do that. They want you to go within that guideline. So if anything, what I'm really trying to do is just instill a level of discipline where even if you feel like you have more to say, you have to find a way to cut it down within that word count. And if you're a little bit below, then you better figure out what else you could add in there to get to that word count. And it's helping us just follow the instructions that we're going to need to do because these are very general instructions. As we do more assignments, they're going to get even more specific. So I want to make sure that we're all really, disciplined in following each instruction exactly word for word, what is required. But really nice job with those discussions, with those posts. I really got a good. The description of yourselves was excellent, and that's really what writing and journalism is about: is describing. So you guys seem to be, ready to go full steam. So let's talk about what we are going to be doing this week. I'm going to head over here to weekly content. We're going to go to week 2. So first thing on the agenda is read chapter 2. You already read chapter 1 last week. Read chapter 2 for this week, which is the basic news story. I'm going to cover a little bit of that right now because that's going to lead us to your first quiz. You have a quiz and an exercise, and I'll show us that in a minute, but the quiz is going to be on chapters 1 and 2. I'll explain that, and that's a graded assignment worth 50 points. You also have an exercise worth 25 points, and I'll get into that in a minute as well. Both are located in your homework folder. I've already said it, but read about your classmates on the discussion board. This is not graded, but I think it's just helpful for you just to go through. They're obviously all very short, and just learn a little bit about who else is in this class with you. And of course, read news every day, and I'm going to show us why in a second this is so important, but you should be reading news every day and trying to connect what you learned. So let's just go into the quiz quickly and the exercise, and then I just want to briefly go over some of the stuff you're going to read in chapter 2 because I think that's just, that's going to be essentially the foundation of what we're going to be moving forward with in the next few weeks in this class. Before I do that, let's take a look at the homework. Like I said, you'll have a quiz, chapters 1 and 2. So here are the instructions. You have a time limit of 20 minutes, and then it's a forced completion. So you can only sit down, take this test once. You can't start it and then stop and then come back later. It's one time, 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, the program Blackboard automatically submits it for you. So while I know 20 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, remember, this is kind of like an open book, right? Because I'm not here to tell you not to use your book. I know you're going to use your book. So, you know, it's 20 minutes, but the idea is that you've read already the chapter. You're not trying to find the answers without reading it, that you've already gone through, you've already highlighted, which I highly suggest that you highlight or mark your book or just take notes like you would if this was a closed book. Because then when you start to take this test, you can go back to your notes. You know, hopefully you're highlighting or hitting on some of the key points that are going to be in the quiz, and you can just go back and find what you've notated, right? So it's 20 minutes, but I think that's fair considering that you have the book and that you've taken notes, and it's really more of you just to go back and find what you've already marked down. And I've already talked about this. Once you start it, it has to be completed. You'll see it will give you an initial, after you finish your assignment, after you finish the quiz, it will give you an initial grade, but it might not be complete because there's some like short answer, which I have to go back and manually and give you the full amount of points or not. So don't be alarmed if you didn't get the full amount of points. It's also, I have to go back. And what I'll also do is I even go back on some of the, like, there's fill in the blank in there. So I go back and just make sure that you didn't mess up, and if you're supposed to put a word and you added an extra letter, I'll give you some points for it, you know, because the computer Blackboard will read that you got the answer wrong because maybe you misspelled it or you put an extra letter by accident, and then I would manually adjust that. So ultimately, basically what I'm trying to tell you is that the first grade that it gives you is kind of like a rough draft. Take a look at it, see, you can see some of the true falses maybe that you got wrong, but that I will go back within the week and adjust it to what the actual final grade is. So this is your first quiz, 1 and 2. What you also have for homework is an exercise worth 25 points. You'll see exercise 1 on page 41 of your textbook. I won't go into it because it spells out the instructions, but it's just a writing exercise. Start getting us used to writing, you know, in a journalistic fashion. So that's as much as I'll say of that right now because the book will explain to you how to do your exercise. So let's talk about this week, though. So you're going to be learning about the basic news story. And the basic news story, and again, I'm not spoiling anything that's in the book. This is going to go way more in detail in the book, but you have your lead. So your lead is that first sentence. It's basically the hook of the story. It kind of gives you the basic of who, what, when, why, where, how, trying to give you what is this story generally about, right? Then you go into the nut graph, and the nut graph is a paragraph or two that kind of gives you the explanation of the story in a little bit more detail. So for example, I'll give you an example of one. I might say something like, for my lead, if I was writing a story, a professor at Middlesex Community College shut down, or a professor at Middlesex Community College hacked into the school system and completely shut down all classes for the 2018 fall semester. That's a pretty awkward lead, but hopefully what you got out of that is, notice that I kind of gave you the who, what, when, where, why, right? A professor at Middlesex Community College, what did he do? Came in, shut down all the classes, so he hacked it, shut down all the classes, and it's when for the 2018 fall semester. Give you a broad overview. So already in one sentence, you kind of know what that story's about. That's your lead. My nut graph now starts to give more details. Professor Adam Chiara, a professor who's been teaching at Middlesex online, hacked into the computer system because he was angry that his students, were trash talking him online or whatever, right? That's pretty good, though. I thought of that on top of my head. But yeah, so now you get a little bit more detail. So now you know, oh, okay, so who is this professor? Why did he do it? And then maybe there's a few more sentences that kind of explain the situation. Then you'll see it goes into background and attribution. So maybe we'll talk about how long I've worked at this college. Maybe we'll talk about, why I decided to do it, like, what led up to it. You also see something called attribution, which you're going to learn about in the book. So they'll get some primary sources, which could be like documents. They could get people are attribution. So you're going to get quotes. You're going to get other people, students that worked with, that took my class that might say what kind of a professor I was. Maybe the president of the college will weigh in. So you're getting attribution, things that are attributed to other people or sources, and then you have an ending of the story. So that's your general basic news story. It's kind of like a formula that we follow. Now within it, you can get a little bit more creative, right? That's where you, the writer, and your style, can each story will be a little bit different, even though we're all using the same set of facts. But it's kind of like a formula. The basic news the basic news story follows that formula. So that's what you're going to really be learning about this week. The formula that a hard news story is written in, and then some of the key terms like what attribution is, what a quote is, what a lead is, a nut graph. These are the key terms I want you to pay attention to because this is the foundation really for the rest of the semester. All right, I told you I'm going to try to keep these videos short. I just like to give you a little bit of taste. Remember, the book is a big supplement. The book is really where you're getting a lot of the information that you're going to need for when you start to write the story, and then when we start writing stories, that's where I can help you out with individual feedback. But for your own good, you have to read the book. Please read the book because you could try to just skim through and maybe survive a quiz, get a C on a quiz, and think, all right, I'm in good shape. But that's all going to haunt you later when you have to start writing news stories and you don't have the knowledge to do it, right? You don't have that foundation to do it. So make sure you're reading that chapter because it's a big supplement on this online class. And then that's going to really help us once we start getting into the writing assignments, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks. As always, if you have any messages, you know what, actually, while I'm saying this, I forgot to do this while I was talking. Let's just find one news story here to look at as a basic news story, and then we can wrap this up. You thought you were about to get out of it for me, but you didn't. All right, let's just take a look at, okay, I haven't looked at any of these stories yet. I'm going to just take this one. So this is not to be confused with the lead. This is the headline. Man once charged with kidnapping, arrested at Hoskins for being found hiding on a report. So that's the headline. That can get confusing. You're going to learn about a headline too in this chapter, but don't confuse that with the actual lead. This would be the lead, the first sentence. A Queens man once charged with kidnapping in Massachusetts was arrested early Friday morning under the porch of a dormitory following a campus-wide search for the prestigious Hoskins School in Salisbury, police said. So let's just kind of break it down. It says, who is it? A Queens man. They don't say the name. Notice that's going to end up in your nut graph. So we know who it is. It's a Queens man. What? Charged with kidnapping. Where? In Massachusetts. When? Friday. Let's see. Where? We already covered Massachusetts. Why? How? They don't really get into how there, but you don't need to get everything into lead. But you get the idea. Within this, right, we have a general idea of what this story's about. Now we go into the nut graph. This is where the details come. Say his name. Say his age. Say what he was actually charged with. They give you a number amount, and a numeral amount, right? $50,000 bond, where he has to appear. Talk about how they found him. Right, so here's your nut graph, all the details. Now we start to go into the background story, and it starts to talk about how this all broke down. You're going to see quotes in here from the state police, it looks like. And then you get here at the bottom, and it's talking about what the next step is. I'm just kind of skimming through this right now. I'll post this on to announcements on Blackboard, so you'll be able to see it and read along with me right now too. But that is just a general basic news story, right? This is a basic news story. It's got a formula to it. Okay, so you've given you everything that you're going to need this week. As always, if you have any questions, message me through my messages, and you should always be checking your messages just in case I send you something. You could also take a look at, remember, due dates over here. So I'm going to go to September. Everything is due on Sunday night, so really just before Monday. You can see, looking at my calendar here, I see what I've got here, the chapters 1 and 2, and the basic news story. Things due on the 9th, right? So take a look at your due dates. You can always check my grades, and that's where the only grades you have is the discussion, but that's where you can see that if you haven't done that already. And you can also go back to, you can find those assignments in the week right under the homework folder, or you can go directly to assignments and you can go do quizzes and then exercises, and that's where exercise 1 will be. So hopefully now you're getting a little bit more of the hang of how this course is structured, but after this week, it's pretty much structured the same each week. And if you have any questions, message me, but look forward to seeing, we're getting into heavier work now, so look forward to seeing, your progression here in the next step.